third version is the Japanese short row, and there's actually two tiny variations of the Japanese short row here. It all depends, I find, on which book you read and which is the right version, but I'll explain both of them to you, and it's a tiny difference. Okay, here's what happens with the Japanese short row. You hit the turn point, and again, you'll have knit the number of stitches the pattern told you to, and turn your work, and then we do something rather interesting. You clip a stitch marker on the yarn. Okay. And then this is where the difference is. Some instructions have you slip this stitch, some instructions have you work it. If you slip this stitch and then purl back, you have to make sure that that yarn over sits in the right place. Okay. Purl back to the point that I want to make my next turn, and I turn my work, and I clip my stitch marker again on the yarn. Safety pins work for this too, removable stitch markers. I've seen bobby pins used for it, whatever, you know, whatever's to hand. We're practical problem solvers. And again, I slip that first stitch and make sure the stitch marker just slides up. Okay. And what's happening is that the stitch markers are sitting on loops of yarn. And this loop of yarn is the loop of yarn that you would have wrapped around the stitch if you had done that first wrap and turn maneuver. It's actually worth experimenting and playing with these just to see what's what. So we knit to where the gap is, and you can see the gap, it's pretty evident, it's a big old gap. And then what you do is you grab your stitch marker, your safety pin, your bobby pin, and you grab that loop and let's pop it on the needle. And that should look a little bit familiar, because what that is that's the same loop of yarn that I would have created if I'd used the yarn over method. It's actually, and here, let me do something just for demonstration purposes. Okay. Oh, look, see? Looks exactly like the wrap and turn as well. So all of these methods, the wrap and turn, the yarn over, this Japanese method, it's all about that loop of yarn. And really the difference between them is about the length of them. Some people feel they're shorter worked one way versus another. Some people feel that the Japanese method is the shortest one. Again, we've got, the scale is awful here because we've got really ridiculously bulky yarn. So try it in your own yarn and see which you prefer. But what you've got here is you've got that loop, and if you think about what we did with the wrap and turn method and the yarn over method, we just picked it up and knitted it together with the following stitch. And again, the wrap has been flipped to the wrong side. I can remove my stitch marker at this point. If you've ever seen someone's sock that seems to be encrusted with safety pins or stitch markers, it's because they're using this method. And there, what you've got is very tidy. I personally like the Japanese method very much because those stitches are tidy, they're not so stretched out, and they don't feel quite so bulky. Okay, but it's worth experimenting once you see the big principle. Look at that, barely visible. And it disguises very nicely the fact that, I'm going to knit all the way across the row so we can see it. Do you see there's a curve here? Because this section is 2 rows taller than that section. And the only way you can tell that there was a short row is just that tucked in the back there. So this is a method I enjoy very much. And on the purl side, we'll purl back. So I'm purling back, and this is another advantage to the Japanese short row method actually, because as I mentioned right at the very beginning, the wraps are really hard to see on the purl side. With the Japanese method, your markers are there telling you where your wraps are. So I purl to the gap, I pick up my wrap, and I'm going to pop it on my left hand needle. Okay, and this is where what we might do is we might do a purl 2 together through the back loop, or I'm going to take that marker off just so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, You wouldn't do this on the bus because you lose stitch markers. Ask me how I know. You could do an SSP as well, and just for fun, you'll slip this stitch, and you're going to slip this stitch, and this one as if to knit. You put them back onto the left needle and then purl them together through the back loop. But what that does is that makes sure that your top stitch is not twisted. And so here, those Japanese short rows, of the 3 I've shown you so far, they're perhaps the trickiest to execute, but the end result is the smoothest and tidiest.